All right, today we're jumping into a really pivotal era, the huge, interconnected world of Dar al-Islam between the years 1200 and 1450. And let me tell you, this was a period of incredible change, some major political shifts, and an absolute explosion of knowledge that would go on to shape the world for centuries.
So first things first, let's define what we're even talking about. Dar al-Islam wasn't just, a bunch of empires on a map. Think of it more as a massive cultural sphere, a house of Islam that connected all sorts of different peoples across continents through a shared civilization and faith.
And that connection is the key to understanding this entire period. Faith, trade, and brilliant ideas weren't just stuck inside borders. They were constantly flowing back and forth across Africa, Asia, and Europe. It created this incredibly dynamic and interconnected world. Okay, so to really get a handle on the society, we've got to start with the beliefs that shaped it. Islam wasn't just a religion happening on the side. Its principles had a direct and pretty profound impact on everything from the economy to social life.
A really huge factor here was the Prophet Muhammad's own background as a merchant. Because of that, Islamic principles were just naturally friendly to trade. This helped create this really vibrant economic environment that was absolutely essential for the massive trade networks that held this whole world together.
Now, let's switch gears to politics, because a major transformation was happening. The old center of power, the Abbasid Caliphate, which was this long-reigning Arab dynasty in Baghdad, was starting to weaken, and that opened the door for new and powerful players to step onto the stage.
This timeline pretty much tells the biggest political story of the era, a massive shift from Arab leadership to new, powerful empires led by Turkic peoples. You've got groups like the Seljuks, the Mamluks, and the founders of the Delhi Sultanate who completely redefined who was in charge. This was a huge deal that would reshape the Islamic world's relationship with both the rising Europe and the Mongol threat coming from the east.
And the story of the Mamluks, it's especially wild. So they were originally brought to Egypt as enslaved warriors. They became this highly trained military elite. But when a power vacuum opened up, their skill and organization let them just seize control. They went from being soldiers to being the ruling sultans themselves.
So here's the crucial point. While the faces at the very top changed from Arab to Turkic, a lot of the fundamental principles of how you governed stayed the same. The military still played a central role, and Sharia, or Islamic law, remained the bedrock of the justice system. It was this fascinating mix of big changes and surprising continuity happening all at once. But listen, the growth of Dar al-Islam wasn't just a story about armies and politics. The faith itself was on the move, spreading in these really powerful, peaceful ways that had a huge impact. This chart really puts it all into perspective, and it might surprise you. Yeah, military conquests played a role, but look, it was actually the smallest piece of the puzzle. The real engines driving Islam's continued expansion were merchants who carried their faith along trade routes and these dedicated missionaries who were out there sharing their beliefs. And a huge part of that missionary success came from one specific group, the Sufis. But who were they exactly? And what made them so effective at spreading the faith?
Well, Sufism offered a more mystical, more personal approach to Islam. It was all about having a direct, personal experience of God, often through beautiful poetry and meditation. This focus on individual spirituality, plus their willingness to connect with local traditions, just made Islam feel way more accessible and appealing to people from all sorts of different cultures.
Okay, now let's get to one of the most remarkable parts of this entire story, the incredible intellectual and scientific flourishing that was happening all across Dar al-Islam. It was just amazing.
To put a human face on this knowledge explosion, just look at these three figures. You've got Nasr al-Din al-Tusi, whose work in math literally laid the groundwork for modern trigonometry. You have Aisha al-Balyonia, a remarkable female Sufi poet and scholar, and of course Ibn Sina, whose medical encyclopedia, the Canon of Medicine, was the standard medical textbook in both the Islamic world and in Europe for hundreds of years.
Now, it's really tempting to think of the scholars in these great intellectual centers like Baghdad or Cordoba as just, librarians, carefully preserving these ancient Greek texts from guys like Plato and Aristotle.
But that could not be further from the truth. They were so much more than that. They were true innovators. They were actively studying, critiquing, and then building on that ancient knowledge, adding their own groundbreaking insights in philosophy, science, and medicine.
And this right here is absolutely key. All of their work, full of both that preserved classical wisdom and all these new Islamic discoveries, was later translated into Latin. This created a vital bridge that carried all that knowledge into European universities, which in turn helped spark the intellectual fires of the Renaissance.
So, after looking at the politics, the faith, and the incredible scholarship, what's the big takeaway from all this? Why does this amazing period of history matter so much?
Well, if there's one single thing the story of Dar al-Islam from 1200 to 1450 shows us, it's that ideas cross all borders. Knowledge, trade, and faith. These are powerful forces that connect all of us, flowing across political lines and cultural boundaries to literally change the world.
And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. When you think about all the incredible breakthroughs from this era, in math, in medicine, in philosophy, which one do you think had the single biggest, most lasting impact on the world? Which innovation truly changed everything? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining this explainer.